let's get into it. Introduce yourself and tell everybody home a little bit about you.
Hey, everybody, I'm Gerry LaFemina from the Downstrokes and Savage Mountain Punk Arts out here in Frostburg and Cumberland, Maryland. I have been playing in punk bands since 1983 with a little dalliance in ska in the early 90s. And I am super excited to be with my buddy Mike Billups right now on the Oh Hell Yeah podcast. I'm also a writer and a professor and an arts activist, and just believe in the real power of giving people a voice. And one way to do that, of course, is playing loud, fast rock and roll.
I like it, buddy. So, in your best recollection, how do you recall connecting with me and Coffin Records?
Well, I was, the Downstrokes had released an album on Snubbed Records, which did okay. We had a record kind of in the can, and I was looking for labels, and I was looking for labels that I liked. So that meant a lot of visiting websites and looking at the production value and listening to the bands and being like, no, maybe. And when I got to Coffin Curse, I loved what you were doing. I loved the look of the stuff on site. And I wanted to make it clear, like, I'm keenly aware that small labels don't have money. So the thing I said to you right away is, we'll pay for it. Like, I have no problem doing that sort of work. But I believe it's important for musicians to believe, any artist to believe in their work. But I wanted a community of like-minded musicians and like-minded bands. And I wanted a sense that, somebody believed in the band. And I sent you the stuff. I think I sent you a query and like one song. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you and I started to talk, Mike, I sort of felt like, holy shit, I love this guy. You have the same sort of philosophy I have, which is good people and good music, right? I don't want to deal with assholes. My life's too short. I'm 54. At a certain point, it's like, you're going to cause me drama or grief. And I try to say that to bands, like when they ask me about playing Savage Mountain, they want this or they want that, or that. I'm like, look, if you're going to cause me grief, if you're going to say, no, I need 2 merch tables, or no, I can't do that, I can only do this, I don't have time. We're a small organization. Don't be prima donnas. Just come out, play, hang out. And be good people. That's all I want. And you're good people, and you do good stuff. And that, for me, is everything.
You pretty much hit the nail on the head. The only little caveat to that story that you didn't mention that I remember was that you reached out through email, and one of the initial things you had mentioned through the email, the email you had mentioned the band, and you had mentioned that you were a promoter and things like that. But you mentioned that you were trying to put together, if I remember correctly, you were trying to put together something, maybe a documentary or maybe just a thesis or something on the punk scene in Appalachia.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that was what interested me at first. And in the initial email, you mentioned that you were in a band, and you mentioned that you were a promoter and that you had Savage Mountain and things like that. But in your initial email, from my best recollection, you didn't mention you had a record in the can that you were looking to get put out. You had just said something along the lines of how you found me on the West Virginia punk blogs, and maybe I'd be a good person to talk to you about Appalachian punk community. And the funny thing about that is we've never actually done that, but we've done a lot of other shit.
Well, it's funny. I forgot that first email because I was thinking about Coffin Curse. one of the things that we've been trying to do is archive Appalachian punk, but we've, it is so much work. As it turns out, there's a lot there. So, and the State Arts Council here in Maryland has given us some funding to sort of start in Western Maryland.
Yeah.
And so we've actually, my Savage Mountain hat on for a couple minutes here. We actually have some oral history from people who were playing punk rock in the late 70s and early 80s. And we have flyers and we have digital tracks. I'm trying to get more, but the idea is to sort of do concentric circles. So as I've been collecting stuff from this area, I've gotten a lot of like the Kaiser, West Virginia area and Morgantown and Southwest Pennsylvania, like Johnstown and Altoona and Pittsburgh. But it starts to become overwhelming when I start thinking about, like, I haven't hit any of the Underground Railroad stuff in Morgantown. I haven't hit West Virginia, further south in West Virginia and getting to bands like Blitzkid. It's you suddenly realize just how big of an undertaking if a small town like Cumberland has this much stuff. And it's about finding the right person. Like, somebody says, "Oh, I don't have that, you should talk to so and so." The guy who's producing the new Downstrokes record, Dan Stevens, whom I've known for a long time, and I knew he was in this sort of alternative band called the Distorted Penguins, who were great, big horn section.
Oh man, I saw them plenty of times.
They're great, and Dan is the one who's recording and producing our record. But I've known this guy for years, and like one day, I'm told that he used to own a venue.
Yeah.
That put on shows, and he's got all these flyers, and I'm like, I need this. Like, how did I not know this? And so, it's kind of like, and one of the things I have, and I think you understand this from your move to Knoxville. I mean, I've been in Frostburg for 20 years. Just about. I got to Frostburg in 2004, so 19 years.
Yeah.
I'm still an outsider.
Oh yeah, I know the feeling.
I didn't go to high school with these people. It's like, so that's like the other thing is, like, people still look at me like, "Why do you want this material? What are you gonna do with it, City Slicker?"
Yeah. Yeah, I know that feeling. I've been here in Knoxville for a decade now, and I still feel it on a daily basis that there are plenty of people who accept me as, a part of the community and accept the label. And then I know that there's a lot of people who think that I'm just some dipshit that came here because they assume I probably failed in my prior community, or, there's plenty to that. So I definitely know the feeling. I hope that 10 years from now I won't be so unaccepted, but there's definitely that feeling.
I'll say this: one of the things that that Savage Mountain has done, that running Savage Mountain has done, is it has really opened up the community to me, and vice versa. I know people sometimes looked at me like, "What are you doing?" And now there are people who are just like, "Keep doing it."
Yeah.
And I'm blessed with that. It's a real amazing thing that takes a long time, but I think everybody realizes now we're all in it together.
Yeah. So when you do come around to, if there's ever a point where you come around to needing information on the Charleston, Huntington area of West Virginia and the punk scene from, say, 95 to 2012, I've got you. I've got a book, trying to find my fingers here in the gosh. I got a book about yay thick that's full of letters, flyers, pamphlets, you name it, I've got it.
Scan it all for me, buddy.
Yeah.
Scan it all for me. There's a guy in town who's actually done some DJ work for Savage Mountain named Butch Haggard, and he lent me his binder, and it was flyers and not just of the punk scene and the ska scene, but also like a couple set lists from his old band, and when the tattoo parlor opened on Main Street, an ad for that. Like it was also this punk ephemera, and he lent it to us, and it was like, I will take good care of it. I'm like putting it in the locked briefcase,
Yeah.
and handcuffing it to my wrist.
He's nicer than I am. That book's never leaving my house. So you've mentioned it a couple times now. Why don't you give us an oral history, like a brief summary of what Savage Mountain is and just how it operates, and talk about the nonprofit and the festival itself.
Well, Savage Mountain.
Not just the one festival, you have multiple festivals.
Well, let's say Savage Mountain Punk Arts in 2020, we took what we were doing and created a nonprofit organization. The idea that punk is nonprofit shouldn't surprise anybody. But we did it the way kind of like you're supposed to. We got a board of directors and we filled out a whole bunch of paperwork. And what that's allowed us to do is actually, because, one of the things we've always wanted to do is keep ticket prices low, but do cool things. And what this has allowed us to do is, get some state grant money. Like the State Arts Council supports us putting on punk rock shows. It's so fucking crazy. But it's been great. But that, and it's also led to us sort of expanding our mission, doing things like building an archive, or like, doing art shows occasionally of, skateboard art or punk artists. We do things like poetry slams, but we see that as just being an extension of the Jim Carroll, Patti Smith, Henry Rollins literary tradition of punk that's been around since the beginning. But it started in 2016 when I just went to a local bar that put on shows and said, look, you guys are dead in the summer. The students are gone. If I put my money where my mouth is and said, look, would you do a 2-day punk festival? And it was pretty much mostly regional bands. We got the Moneys were on tour, so we grabbed them. We had the Nuclears from New York come down. But for the most part, it was Philadelphia, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Philly. It was sort of like bands that could get here. And it did okay. And I said, I spent several $100s out of my pocket. But my attitude was, if I'd gone to a weekend in Baltimore or Pittsburgh to see this show, what would it have cost me?
Exactly.
So I did it again. And the bar did okay. The bar did well enough that they weren't out any money. So, and they had a good weekend. So we did it again, and it got bigger. In 2017, we brought the Undead, and we brought the Independents. And it was good. And so we decided we'd do it a third year. And by now the bar was sort of like, well, maybe this is actually a thing. And again, I always had to take money out of my pocket, and I'm okay with that. I'm not rich, but if you're not willing to support the cause, whatever the cause is for whoever you are, if you're not willing to support the cause, why are you doing it?
Exactly.
Don't give lip service. And so the third year we brought Argyle Goolsby and Crypt Keeper 5, and it was really, really good. And then the next year we had the Queers, and The bar had ordered like 1,024 cans of PBR for the weekend, and it was gone by the end of Friday night.
No surprise.
And I asked one of the bartenders whom I knew. I said, "Did you have a good weekend?" And she said, "I made my rent."
Wow.
But what started to happen was people started to come from all over. So we would get people from Baltimore and Pittsburgh and DC, but suddenly we were getting people from New York and Richmond, Virginia, and Colorado, because friends were saying, "Hey, you should come out for this weekend." And now when Sloppy Seconds played, we had people from Michigan, Chicago, Los Angeles, and it's gotten bigger and bigger. And with that has come doing these other things. So we had Richie Ramone here last year. We're going to have Electric Frankenstein in March. We do an annual picnic in May, which sort of is a feeder act for opening bands for the festival. We do a Punktoberfest. And for some of those things, we try to do things with sort of punk rock flea market style. At the picnic, we have vendors, we have food trucks. And what's really amazing is that we get so much support from the community. Even people who don't care about punk rock, don't care about what we do per se, really love the idea that it's happening.
Yeah.
Really love that people are coming to this area and spending the weekend and going into the shops and going into the restaurants and having a good time. And one of our regulars is moving to Winchester, Virginia now because he loves this area. He's not moving to Frostburg or Cumberland, but he's like, "Hey, now I'm only an hour away." But he fell in love with the mountains and with this area, and then said, "Well, where do I want to live?" And we've had a lot of that. And so it's really amazing the sort of community support. And there might be somebody right now listening to this going, "Oh, that's not punk rock." I don't know what is more fucking punk rock than community. Right? It's all about scene. And if somebody's supporting the scene, I ain't gonna complain that they don't wear a black t-shirt or some shit like that. There's all sorts of ways to support what we do.
Without community, Savage Mountain 7, 8, 9, it's not going to happen. So one thing that I do know that has happened that you didn't mention just there that really blows my mind is over the years, you all have not only expanded in all the ways that you just mentioned, but it's grown to 3 and 4 days. You've expanded to a larger venue. So, I mean, cooking on all cylinders. My band Reckless Threat played 2 years ago. We were scheduled to play this year, and I unfortunately almost died. So that kind of fell apart.
We're really glad you didn't die, by the way. Can I just want to be clear on that. Nobody is going around like, "Oh, we can't have Reckless Threat back because, the dude almost died and they had to cancel." Nobody said that. Okay, one person said it, but I shut him up.
Yeah, it was probably Maddie from Chupacabra that said it. that half-dead motherfucker, he's never played here again. Nah, we had a great time, and I did not obviously attend or play 2022's festival, but I was there in spirit. I watched tons of videos, saw tons of pictures, and I felt like it brought me right back. It's the same stage, same space, a lot of the same bands, a lot of new bands, but I mean, I was there in spirit, and there was, of all the terrible things and all the shit that filled my head for those 4 months while I was recovering, that was a happy / very depressed weekend for me.
Well, you were missed. We are super excited about this year. As you know, Super Suckers are coming. The Pie Tasters are coming.
Yeah.
The Cheats, Pittsburgh's The Cheats will be there. We are hammering out the Thursday night headliner. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to jinx it. But it's going to be a great 3 days. We also do the weekend before. We have an acoustic weekend.
Yeah.
And we actually are exploring the possibility of having our own venue, which would be bigger than the one we currently have. Because we are keenly aware of our capacity to, be over capacity at Savage Mountain.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was, from my experience, it was comfortable and no complaints other than it was very hot in 2021. The big issue is when the, oh my gosh, why are they blanking? I've seen this band 20 times in my life. When Sloppy Seconds went on, and there were so many people in there that it was way over capacity. I get where you're coming from. That's where you have that oh shit moment. We're okay for 90% of these days. But then when the big cheese shows up and the people, the stragglers, like to call them, the people who want to come to the headliner and unfortunately won't gut it out all day in the heat for the locals and for the traveling bands, when those people show up and fill the place to overcapacity, that's when the nut cutting comes and you say, oh shit, this doesn't work all the time.
What's really cool about our venue, though, of course, is that what I love about it is the number of people who can just hang out outside, and look through the windows at the back of the stage.
Yeah.
So
there's plenty of people that hang outside the windows and like to moon fat drummers during their sets as well. There was one guy there.
Are we talking about Chupacabra again?
He mooned me too. Same guy. I saw him moon like 3 or 4 different drummers. I guess he just really wanted to get some air on his ass. Sometimes you got to let your butt breathe.
He wanted those sticks, man.
I just wonder where he wanted to put them. Hello. Well, let's talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, which is the new Downstrokes 7-inch. You got that handy?
This thing right here, this little old thing.
Yeah,
there it is.
Been waiting on that puppy for a while, thanks to COVID and vinyl delays.
Yeah, we are super excited about it. It's UFO Baby back with Bride of Frankenstein. We were talking about our friend Mike Stevenson, who produced and mixed and produced the UFO Baby, and Bride of Frankenstein was produced by our friend John Stecker up at Razorblade Recordings in Pittsburgh. And we're super excited about it. The cover art here was done by Jared Shearer, who is a friend of Savage Mountain and the Downstrokes. And we're very excited about it. It's been a long time coming. We were originally hoping to do it as a split, so we kept waiting and waiting and waiting. And then finally we were like, you know what, let's just make it our horror punk single.
Yeah.
So there we have a little science fiction and then a little horror punk on the back. And super happy about it. I'm sure you saw that Big Takeover magazine. We released it digitally at Halloween, so it was their number 18 single for 2022, which we are honored to have, and we're supporting it with it. Our record release party is actually with Electric Frankenstein, so we're super excited about that. And then we're going to be all over the East Coast this spring. So I hope people come out and check it out.
Yeah. We I think obviously with delays, the conversation is a constant swivel, and there's a lot of will we. But I know that for the longest time, the conversation was, well, this is going to be a Halloween release, and it'll, the theme will fit perfectly with Halloween. And then around September, you got the big, probably not showing up to February email and just crushing.
And we got it in January. We got it in January. We barely, but
yeah.
And it's a great feeling to get those boxes in the mail. It really is.
Yeah.
But we're in the studio recording the new album, and so it's kind of like it's out and it's really exciting, but there's also like, but here are all these new songs that we're really excited about.
Yeah, and that seems like that's the nature of the beast right now, is because vinyl production is so slowed down, everyone is dropping records into people's hands while they're already working on their new album.
Yeah.
And that was the issue with the Working Right record that we just put out last week, was, they had the record, it was done. It was, we worked out a deal for Coffin to put it out, and the conversation was, we want this to be on LP. And I said, let's do it, but here's the conversation. Do we sit on it for a year, not release it, wait for the LPs to show up, and then that's the new record, and you've played these songs for a year, and the guys have toured on this record for a year, and by the time we drop it, then the band's bored of it, they've already written a new record, they're ready to go to the studio and start all over again? Or do we just put it out on CD, let it ride, let you guys continue the traction you're on, and the next record we do on LP? Or if vinyl production speeds up and things change, 6 months from now, we can get the money together and put out the record on vinyl, because the people that bought it on CD, if they really want it on vinyl, they're going to buy it. And there's people who aren't going to buy CDs, that 6 months from now, if it comes out on LPs, they will buy it.
Yeah.
So it's just a big juggling match with how do you do this type of business right now? And if you're willing, like you guys, if you're willing to wait and you have the patience, then that is obviously an option. But a lot of people just aren't willing to wait and don't have the patience.
Well, I mean, we were sort of also caught up in some lineup issues, right? We lost our drummer. When we recorded UFO Baby, we borrowed a drummer from our friends Control Chaos. When you saw us at the Savage Mountain Punk Fest, we had a local drummer who I think he had to borrow sticks from you.
Yeah. He borrowed sticks for sure.
Who is great, but didn't want to make the commitment to being in a band. Then we had a drummer who, just personality-wise, it couldn't last very long. And so we were looking for a drummer, and Kyle fell in our lap, and he's been great. He's almost been with us now for a year, and so we'd been writing songs, but we hadn't been arranging them or getting them to a place to be finished. And so now here we are. We recorded 10, but we have another 5 or 6 that we're ready to record. Like, we're going to have 16 songs, and it's probably going to be an LP and an EP, or an LP and maybe a bunch of singles, or an LP and maybe we'll find somebody to do a split with. Jay Prozac and I have been talking about the possibility of doing something with them. We really love those guys, and we play with them now several times, and we're going to be up with them again. We're going to be in Massachusetts with them, and then we're going to be in New York together. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. It's more a matter of having the time. I think one of the things, we have lives too. I got to go to work tomorrow. All of us got to go to work tomorrow. All of us, I'm lucky. My kid is, 31 and out of the house. He's about 500 feet that way. He's not that far out of the house.
Yeah.
But our bass player has a 13-year-old and a 5-year-old. Our Robin, our lead guitarist, has a 5-year-old. And two in college. It's like, at a certain point, you find the time, and then it becomes this: do we go on the road and play 3 shows in 3 days, sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
or are we working on new songs? Like we have February off so that we can finish the last of these 5 songs and like really get them tight and get into the studio and bang them out.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a good problem to have, though. I know the feeling. I've been there in multiple bands. Sometimes you'll have that member who thinks, I mean, we've got to finish this before we do this, and we have all this. Hey, having more than less is a great problem to have. I've been in bands. I'm sure you've been in bands too, where a year goes by and you realize you haven't written a new goddamn song in 14 months. So having more than less is definitely a good problem to have.
Oh yeah, and you know what? I spend my time with 3 other guys whom I really like and respect as people and as musicians. And that's the key thing. That's the key thing. I love playing with these guys, whether we're in the basement working on new songs, whether we are in the studio, or whether we're on stage. We're having a good time together, and you get better by playing live. You get better by knowing each other too.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like I really can't stress enough how much these guys are my good friends. And I'm sort of just how great it is that we make music. We make music that people seem to like together too. That to me is genius.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Good. Again, a good problem to have.
Exactly.
If having company with people that you enjoy and having people enjoy your company is a problem, then that's a good problem to have.
I don't know if they'd say the same thing about me, Mike. I'm the asshole.
I've always been the asshole of my band. It's I like to call it passion, but maybe I'm just an asshole. So Gerry, while we wind down here, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I'm going to ask all of my guests.
Okay.
And the first question, I'm sure, is going to be an easy one for you because I know you're a lifer. But can you tell me what your gateway to punk rock was?
Yeah, I can. The Ramones' Rocket to Russia record. Was that 79? I think that's 79.
Yeah.
It was
came out 76, right?
Yeah. I think Rocket to. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna cheat.
Yeah.
Because we have this technology, I might as well make it useful. My brother, who has terrible taste in music. I'm sorry if you're listening to this, Mike. It's true. You were listening to ELO when Patti Smith and the Ramones were, playing. I don't know why you weren't in New York checking it out. No, it was released in 77. Rocket to Russia was 77. My brother had in his record collection, and I would go through it from time to time. And so, by then I was keenly aware that there was interesting stuff happening musically. Obviously I knew about somebody like David Bowie, and I knew some edgier stuff on New York radio. And I would go to my friend Vinnie Borriello's house. He had MTV. I guess that would have been like 82. So yeah, we're talking about like 1982. But my brother had Rocket to Russia. And I remember putting it on one day and thinking, oh my God. And the copy of Rocket to Russia in my record collection is that one. I took it and he never got it back. Yeah, and so I was about 13 years old when I discovered Rocket to Russia and and at the same time, MTV was having the basement tapes and stuff like that. And so what eventually happened is that I had seen Kraut videos on the basement tapes on MTV. And one day when I was, the summer I was 14 years old, 1982, we were visiting my aunt on First Avenue and East 6th Street in Manhattan. And I saw a flyer that Kraut was playing a free show in Tompkins Square Park. And I went. Reagan Youth played. Beastie Boys played when Beastie Boys were still a punk band. And it was life-changing. It was just life-changing. And after that, that's it. 40 years later, I'm still doing this shit.
Yeah, we could have the time period you grew up in, about 10 years earlier than my youth. You could have been easily lost to the Flock of Seagulls or the Kraftwerk.
I saw Flock of Seagulls. I saw Flock of Seagulls live, because there was a really cute girl who wanted to see Flock of Seagulls. The number of times I did things because an attractive woman wanted me to do it musically, particularly about certain things, is legion. And if there's a band that Mercedes wanted to see that I didn't really want to see, but she said, please, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'm still a sucker. What can I say?
Yeah. Hey, my wife really wants to go see MGK, and I've avoided that like a plague. I think that one that's my hill to die on. I will not be seeing. But
I had to think who MGK was for a second. I figured it out, but
you should not waste your time. It's Tommy Lee in the Motley Crue Dirt movie. That's my little interest in MGK ends there. So a lot of my friends, obviously you and I are good friends, and a lot of my friends, I can already tell where this conversation is going to steer when I ask this question, but I can genuinely say that I have no clue where this conversation is getting ready to go when I ask this question. So I'm just going to ask it, and we'll see where it goes. So what is when I ask you your knee-jerk reaction to this question, who's the first person that pops in your head, and are you a fan? Tell me about your experience with pro wrestling.
Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
I like it.
Whom I just remembered jumping off the turnbuckles when I was, maybe 10 years old, watching it on Saturday morning, I think, back when it was still called WWF. And I used to think this should be pandas wrestling each other, right? Anyway, I get it. It just doesn't interest me. I
like that your wrestler you are the quickest person that comes to your mind is a wife murderer.
Is he?
I
don't know. Look, actually the first person, like as I said it, the other person that came to my mind was superstar Billy Graham, who had long flowing blonde hair, and then I heard he made a comeback and he was bald and had a brown mustache. But wait, so Jimmy Superfly Snuka murdered his wife?
Yeah, he murdered his wife, and to the best of my recollection, it's well known that it happened. It was ignored for all these years. He passed away. And then soon after, and I could be wrong, the internet might tell me I'm full of shit, but I'm 99.9% sure that once he passed away is when they actually post-mortem prosecuted him for murder. So
I had no idea.
It happened in like 85. I mean,
yeah, by then, my interest in pro wrestling had been replaced by punk rock and girls.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, those are two of the big three for me still.
Yeah, I dig it. There's currently a female pro wrestler named Ruby Soho, who obviously you can tell by the name is a punk rock theme wrestler, but she's actually as a person, she's been a punk rocker her whole life, and a lot of people think it's just a gimmick, but she's actually a pretty cool person who's very much into punk rock. And Rancid's Ruby Soho is her entrance music, and she's a big fan of punk. I actually communicated with her recently on Instagram, and I'm sending her a package of just a shit ton of Coffin Curse stuff because I was like, hey, she's into punk. I'm just going to reach out. I started doing that recently where I just reach out to people who are like celebrities or, half celebrities that dig punk. And I was like, why not send people free swag that are celebrities that like punk? The worst that could happen is I give away stuff for free. The best that could happen is they wear a shirt on a podcast or a, internet exclusive appearance or some shit. So you never know.
When it comes to the wrestling thing, and it's like this with me for comic books and for all this stuff that I loved as a kid, I have only so much bandwidth. I really do. Like there are people who could be like, oh, I'm collecting toys and records and comic books, and I'm keeping up with all these movies, and I'm watching, all 97 seasons of The Walking Dead and related shows. I don't have that sort of bandwidth. I really don't. I have the 3 or 4 things I'm really passionate about, and I'm really passionate about them. And and that's just how I am. When I'm burnt out and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like, I'm gonna watch some TV. I want trash. I either want shows from my childhood, like I just named a cat Columbo.
Nice. Nice.
It's just familiar. I'm not looking to but all like the drama of wrestling, and I can't keep up. I don't care. Like what I like about a baseball game really is that I could sit, it could be on. I could not pay attention. I could also be reading a book or doing other things, and I could look up and the score tells me what it is, and I'm not like, and that's just me. Like people who love it, I'm friends with Handsome Dick Manitoba of the Dictators, who was a professional wrestler. And I love the guy, and I get why people love it. It's good and bad. It's morality play. It's all that.
Yeah.
It doesn't hit me where I live.
There are ironically a lot of punk rock musicians who have dabbled in pro wrestling.
Yes.
You know another one, the KC. Gosh, I'm bad with names. One of the members of Jerks is currently a pro wrestler. Richie from Shindig, who I introduced you to, we were trying to book him to do a speaking appearance over the spring. That didn't work out, but he's a retired pro wrestler, and so there's a lot of people in the punk scene that I could name when I had more time to think about it that are Chad. One of my best friends, Chad, who's the singer of Corner Arcade, who will be a guest on here soon. Chad is a pro wrestler. So a lot of pro wrestling and punk rock kind of go hand in hand with that stuff, but it's also just culture. It's punk rock and Star Wars go hand in hand. Punk rock and comic books. It's all kind of like the culture, just kind of the entertainment field is kind of all wrapped around music. Punk rock is really open to all subcultures, I think.
I think you're right. I also think that punk rock happened. If we think about 1976 as the birthplace of punk rock, give or take, right? I don't want to get, somebody's going to be like, oh no, it was Iggy and the Stooges in 1968. Yes, yeah. I know, but if we think about like the explosion point, well, what's happening in the culture? Well, you have Star Wars in 77. You have that's when WWF first like really exploded on television. That's where you have the sort of rebirth of comic books with somebody like, Kirby drawing. Right? That's roughly when like the X-Men 94, 96, that rebirth of the X-Men shows up, and Kirby sort of takes over stuff. I mean, I think there's a kind of cultural nexus point of the late 70s that that is sort of all tied together in some of this. You know, and so for whatever that's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, I was born in late 1980, Christmas Day 1980, so almost 1981, but I'm an 80 baby through and through, and I think I was born right around the boom of everything cool. Wrestling, sports, obviously punk rock was a couple years earlier, but hardcore punk, Los Angeles punk, DC punk, it all kind of came around about the time my mom popped me from her fresh womb. So I feel like I was born at the right time.
Well, I sometimes bemoan the fact that, I started going to shows in 82 and 83. And I sometimes bemoan the fact that, like, I got to see the Ramones a lot in New York, but I never got to see them at CBGB's. I never got to see them, and I think, God, I really, I got to see Johnny Thunders play with Jerry Nolan and Walter Lore, but I never got to see the four Heartbreakers.
Yeah.
And I sometimes wish, if only I were older. And then I think, no, then I'd be older now too. And damn it, I'm old enough now.
Yeah. Can we stop this? Can we put a kickstand on this and just stay where we're at?
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't.
Did you ever play CBs?
Oh, I played CBGBs a ton.
Cool.
I played my first show, actually, in Expletive Deleted, was opening for Suicidal Tendencies at a Sunday matinee. I played there. Wow. I opened for Sham 69 on the Outside the Warehouse tour.
Wow.
And then a bunch of times, all over the place, and until I left New York in 1990. So I was a CBGB kid. I played the Lismar. I played the Cat Club. I played a whole shit ton of benefit shows in Tompkins Square Park and venues I can't even remember anymore.
Yeah.
It's like there are people who could be like, oh, I remember this event and this event. And I'm like, between 1982 and 1990, there are shows that stand out. But like, I'm not one to keep ticket stubs. I'm not one. Yeah. My mom moved in the middle of the night in 1992 or 1993. She had to move out of her house, and all like the stuff of mine that was left behind.
Oh man.
It ended up in a dumpster, including like the Expletive Deleted master tapes and stuff like that. The fact is that I saw a shitload of great bands. And I was, what a great time to, it was this amazing time in which nobody carded you.
Yeah.
And you just see band after band after band, and but it's also like, it's like, those movies in which they show you like the reel going really fast to show time passing.
Yeah.
That's like there are shows I remember the Replacement show at CBGB's when after 3 songs they walked off saying, we're too fucked up, give them all their money back.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember saying, I will never see this band again. They suck. And then a girl, a very attractive young woman, convinced me I should go see them that following weekend at Maxwell's in Hoboken. And I remember having like my eyes and ears blown out. They were so damn good.
Yeah. So they were really just drunk.
Yeah. I of course, it was not nearly as memorable as a band saying, we're too fucked up, give them all their money back. So like people are like, well, what songs did they play? I'm like, how the fuck do I know? I was, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And 2, I was mostly dumbfounded and flabbergasted at just how good they were convinced they were going to suck.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking I should write down the set list as I'm listening to it. Like,
Yeah.
And probably the shows I remember the most are the shows that have personal events tied to them for one reason or another. Breakups or great first dates, or my own stupidity hitting me in the face, stuff like that.
I remember the bad shows more than the good shows.
Yeah. I think that's true, because they have something you can hold on to. That train wreck.
Yeah. Well, as we're wrapping up here, I will say this: I am knowing you like I do, knowing that you're knowing that you're an avid reader and a poet and very much into books. I'm excited to have you guys down here soon to East Tennessee to play the venue that I'm currently the booker at, which is the Bird and the Book in Maryville, Tennessee. And for anyone who doesn't know, you haven't played here yet, so you're not familiar yet either, other than what I've told you. The Bird and the Book is a concert space in the basement of a bookstore. And the bookstore is called Southland Books and Cafe. And Southland Books has over 70,000 used books and thousands of new titles. And there's also the dungeon in the to the left of the Bird and Book venue. There's a kind of a comic shop, VHS store. And I call it a dork store. I'm sure people wouldn't appreciate that, but kind of like a Spencer's Gifts mixed with a Sam Goody mixed with a comic book store called the Dungeon. And this venue is hitting on all cylinders, and I really hope you guys are able to make it down so you can visit Southland before load in for the show, because I think you'll really, really appreciate the bookstore. It's quite a trip.
I love it, and I'll put the bug in your ear. Maybe the bookstore can grab one or two of my titles and have it in there.
Oh, absolutely. Lisa will do. I've joked with her the other day. That obviously I work there, so I'm friends with the owner, and I joked with her the other day that she said I have a lot of stories, and I said you wouldn't believe the stories that I have. And the stories that I can tell you that I think are the way I'm telling it is correct. And then I have my wife or my friends that were actually a part of the stories tell me that's not right. But the way I tell it, it's fucking funnier. And I think that I should make a book of stories from my perspective. Maybe they're not all the exact truth, and maybe the facts are a little bit skewed for entertainment. But she was like, I'll sell that book. So if she's going to sell my shit, she'll definitely sell your good stuff. But yeah, huge supporter of independent books, and yeah, just bring whatever you want to leave behind.
Okay, that's great. I'm actually working on a book right now. It's going to be 20 albums, talking about the album, but also talking about its cultural relevance, and talking about a little bit of memoir, a little bit of history. So the first album I did was Meet the Beatles. It was the first album I ever owned when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
The second album, the second essay I'm writing right now is about Sandinista.
Very cool.
And they're not like going song by song or anything like that. It's a whole bunch of stuff. It covers the Strummer mural on the side of Niagara in New York appears in it. And
yeah. Do you like it? Do you like Sandinista?
It's brilliant, but like a lot of brilliant stuff, it's also terrible.
Yeah.
It is incredibly ambitious, and I like ambition.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's easy to talk about artists, about their greatness. But what I love about Sandinista, it's what I love about some of my favorite books, is the willingness to put the failures on tape.
Yeah.
A lot of if London Calling is the Clash's Revolver or Rubber Soul, take your pick, this album that was sort of groundbreaking and diverse and took them out of the mold, much like those two records did for the Beatles. I think it's safe to say that Sandinista is the White Album.
Yeah.
And let's face it, Revolution number nine, or Rocky Raccoon. I mean, we could talk about some of the, I think you could see the same thing in the children's chorus of the children singing Career Opportunities, which is what loses me on that record.
Yeah.
Although we were listening to it last night, it was Mercedes' first time hearing Sandinista. And she made it to about side 2 before she was like, what the hell is that?
It's definitely interesting.
I think it's the thing is this. So I edited a book a couple of years ago called Clash by Night, and it was poets covering London Calling. So I sort of felt like I couldn't talk about London Calling because I'd already been involved in a book project. I originally thought I was going to do Give 'Em Enough Rope, because Give 'Em Enough Rope has been in our discussions of the new Downstrokes record in terms of production values, etc. And then Robin, about 4 weeks ago, we started talking about covering a Clash song, and he suggested "Police on My Back," which is a song I love. And it took me right back to Sandinista, and I realized that this rambling, ramshackle, it's if it's a department store, it's not like Macy's or something like that. It's more like the Burlington Coat Factory. Is simultaneously brilliant and terrible. Had it been a double record, I think it would have been the best album they ever put out.
Yeah, I have a copy on cassette that I am super proud to say that I found at a record store for 99 cents, and it's unopened. And it's like it's the gray. You know, the cassettes when they were OG before the original cassettes were gray, and then they went to white, and then they went to black and clear. But the tape itself is gray. I was like, this thing is original as it gets. Unopened, couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe they could charge 99 cents. Found it at a record store in Asheville, North Carolina. So
mine is the original vinyl copy. I don't remember buying it. I know that I didn't have it when I saw the Clash at Shea Stadium open for the Who in 1982. I did not own the record then. I know I had it when I graduated high school, so in 1986.
Yeah.
So, but I spent most of my high school years spending my money on records, shows, or girls.
Yeah.
You might have noticed there's
okay. There's a theme here.
There's a theme. Yeah.
Well, while we wrap up, let's talk a little bit more about the 7-inch. Always underneath here, there's always going to be the coffincurse.com link. So, and also in the description, the 7-inch is available now to buy, not pre-order. We're shipping today. If you want to buy a copy of the new Downstrokes 7-inch, it's available, shipping today. Are we still going to be doing? This is going to drop on Sunday. Are we still going to be doing the T-shirt?
Yeah, we'll do the T-shirt till Valentine's Day.
Okay. Yeah. So $20 gets you. Sounds good to me. $20 gets you a Downstrokes Bride of Frankenstein themed T-shirt, right? Or
UFO Baby T-shirt.
UFO Baby T-shirt. So UFO Baby T-shirt and the 7-inch for $20 shipped. You're looking at like $28, and that's a great bargain. We're basically giving it away. So just go to www.coffincurserecords.com.
And I want to say that we have those shirts in women's sizes too.
Cool.
So, if you want to get your a UFO Baby T-shirt, do it.
Yeah. So, and then the 7-inch by itself is $10. If you're not interested in the shirt, you can just buy the 7-inch standalone. Downstrokes obviously have those with copies of their 2 previous LPs and CDs and shirts and everything else at their upcoming tour date. And you want to pitch anything coming up, Gerry, or talk about your social media?
You could follow us at the Downstrokes MD on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow at SVGMTN Punk Arts on Facebook and Instagram for Savage Mountain. Or you could visit us. We are on Reverb Nation. We are on Bandcamp. We are streaming on all the services that stream. And you could also check out our website, which is thedownstrokespunk.com.
Well, brother, I appreciate you joining me for another episode of the Old Hell Yeah podcast. And
yeah, brother, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for your time, and I'll be seeing you here in a few weeks.
Can't wait. Love you, man.
Love you too, brother.
Take care.
Thank you, buddy.